This web series ran so after and those Harry Styles fanfiction movies can crawl. I'm so excited for this video, guys. You have no idea. I'm dressed nicely as well. Like, look at this. Look at this shirt. Very on theme as well. I'm very proud of this purchase. I only bring it out for any special occasion, like making this video. Some people would love to forget about this piece of media, act like it was all a fever dream. But not me. I believe in preserving the ancient texts and also studying them as well. Come with me today as we talk about EXO NEXT DOOR. Oh, it's sticking. As a former K-pop fan, I still like K-pop. I listen to it occasionally, but I was a much bigger fan of K-pop in the past. Anyway, as a former K-pop fan, one of the groups that I really like is EXO. EXO is a South Korean boy band from the company SM Entertainment. SM is a very influential and big name within the South Korean entertainment industry. They have really popular groups on their roster, including groups like Girls' Generation or Super Junior, or if you're a newer K-pop fan, groups like NCT or aespa. I would argue that EXO is probably one of their biggest groups. In the height of their popularity, EXO might even be more popular than BTS in South Korea. EXO first debuted in 2011 with 12 members from South Korea and China. Initially, the 12 members were separated into two subunits. 6 members form exo-k, where they sing songs in Korean and promote in South Korea, whereas the other 6 members form exo-m and sing in Mandarin and promote in China. However, since a lot of the Chinese members left the group, they eventually merged the two groups into one big collective EXO organism, though they still release songs in both Korean and Mandarin. Now EXO has 9 members, with them being Suho, their leader, and then xiumin, Lei, Chen... Oh! I can't see the glare. I'm sorry. Baekhyun. I'm struggling. The glare is making... I'm struggling. So Suho, their leader, xiumin, Lei, chanyeol, Baekhyun, Chen, Kai, and Sehun. EXO was almost called Boys Paradise, which thank God they didn't go with that name. The name they settled with is derived from the words exoplanet, because, bear with me, there is lore. You know how with artists, it is often that they wear a mask. The person you see on stage, the person performing, promoting the music, it's not usually them truly. These people are media trained and they often assume a persona. Think people like Chappell Roan or Lady Gaga who have musical personas. For EXO, their personas are aliens from a planet called Exoplanet, and each of these men have supernatural powers. I wouldn't say this is something unheard of because SM used the same tactic with aespa and their avatars and their kwangya, whatever kwangya is. While the whole shtick might come across as over the top and low-key kind of funny, I would say it's kind of creative. It's extra, but it's fascinating and it makes you go like, what? Let me research this thing. However, eventually, the idea that these men are aliens trying to assimilate with our world, yeah, that's like put on the back burner and they just become a group who release music. But lore sometimes still appears in the music videos, mostly as Easter eggs. And I think that's kind of a good way to engage and reward fans who have been with EXO for a very long time. In spite of the lore and all of those things, the thing that drew me into EXO in the first place is the fact that they have really good singers. EXO has really heavy hitters in terms of vocal, in the glare from the sun, in Chen, Baekhyun, and Dio. Their voices blend very well together and they have good tones just individually, and their voices are very versatile. Baekhyun and Chen in particular have become some of my favorite voices in K-pop because they're just like, their voices are just so good, they're very talented. But the group's collective voices overall just allows EXO to have a really diverse discography. They can do R&B, rock, hip-hop, ballads, and a lot of their early songs are very theatrical, and I don't know how to describe it, but it's like it spans, like it's scenic. I think that's also because they have lore. EXO debuted with the song Mama, and this song is very grandiose and it really sets the tone for EXO as a group. It's hard to imagine a modern or recent K-pop group debuting with a song like that because this song, in my opinion, is kind of challenging to sing. There's a lot of moving parts and the song is almost 5 minutes long. Imagine that. Songs these days, they don't even last for 3 minutes. Mama has an intro, it has 2 verses, it has a pre-chorus, a chorus with singing, so it's not just a beat drop, and then it also has a bridge, a dance break, all of those things. Compared to songs these days, this song is a musical. They just don't make them like they used to. EXO continues to release bangers after bangers, and their choreography and performance also complement the songs really well. So this combination makes for a very good balance where you can still listen to the music solely on its own and find enjoyment from it, and you can watch the performances and enjoy them too. So it's not like the song is fine on its own, but it's only elevated by seeing the dance. The song is already good as it is, and the performance just ties everything together. Since these 2 elements are good individually, it explains why EXO might have further appeal to general audiences who might not usually engage with K-pop groups or K-pop idols because they don't have to rely on seeing the performance live. So people who are just there to listen to the occasional songs, they don't have to be wowed by the performance, they can just be wowed by the song on its own. EXO members also have their own solo albums, and most of them vary between genres, which is nice to see their individuality. Chen did ballads, Baekhyun did R&B, Dio did what I could only describe as Ed Sheeran music, and then Suho did a Coldplay-esque album, and all of the albums are great. EXO also has subunits. The first one is EXO CBX, which consists of Chen, Baekhyun, and Xiumin, and their songs are also very good, of course. And that subunit is just as popular as the collective organism EXO group. And there's also EXO-chan, which has Sehun and Chanyeol, and they do mostly like hip-hop. However, what I wanted to highlight in this video specifically is their web series EXO NEXT DOOR. EXO NEXT DOOR is a web series created in collaboration with LINE. If you know, you know. And this is obvious with the amount of LINE product placements in this series, which is egregious. You would think the only products that exist in this universe is LINE and EXO. That's how bad it was. The series was released in 2015, and in the same year, EXO had another collaboration with LINE, which is a variety show called Serp Line's EXO. The reason I wanted to talk about EXO NEXT DOOR is because, first, it's insane, and second, it's such a time capsule. I think EXO debuted at a strange time where companies are trying to figure out how to truly engage audience and fans through the internet. Because before then, the way you promote these artists has been quite traditional. So you release a song, then you go to music shows like Music Bank or Inkigayo to promote the song, then you go to variety shows or reality shows. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll get your own variety show from TV networks, which is actually what happened with EXO as well. Then you do in-person fan meets and, you know, like all those sorts of things. While K-pop does have an international appeal, the notion of engaging with international audiences has never been top of mind back then. The international appeal is just an additional thing that hopefully would come out of the regular promotional cycle that they would do in South Korea. But when EXO debuted alongside the other groups that debuted around that period of time, the internet has become more accessible. Young people who tend to be engaged in this K-pop culture would be more on the internet than tuning into television. You see rises of platforms like VLive, which is like Twitch but for K-pop idols and their fans, and these platforms allow idols and fans to connect much easier because, you know, they can just literally go on a stream. So instead of waiting for a television platform to say, yes, let's have these groups in these shows, these companies can just go to these idols and be like, go to VLive and entertain these people for like 30 minutes or something. The internet has also birthed the rise of web series, where you can produce scripted shows or variety shows without needing as much budget as the bigger shows on television because each episode is only 10 to 15 minutes long. And sometimes a lot of companies and organizations would love to partner with artists and celebrities like EXO to gain further attention on the internet. Of course, an example of this case is EXO NEXT DOOR and EXO's overall collaboration with LINE. And another example is also Kai, where's Kai? And also Kai from EXO, who starred in this web series called Coco Bank. And this web series was created for the Financial Services Commission in South Korea. And in the series, Kai stars as a man named Kim Eun-heng, where Eun-heng literally means bank in Korean. And the intention of the series is, as Wikipedia describes it, to show financial management of startup businesses. So overall, these collabs are win-win for these people. With all of these context and background information out of the way, let's talk about EXO Next Door. We open the web series with a fan driving in the middle of the night and its passengers talking about how the fan is obvious. Then we cut to our introduction to our main female character. Is it in the frame? Yeonhee. Yeonhee was trying to buy some pads. She's very shy about buying these pads. She's blushing really badly because she's embarrassed. And it doesn't help that the cashier at the supermarket was very slow. And Yeonhee just wants to get the transaction done and to escape this drunk guy in the same supermarket. Yeonhee finishes buying the pad and then she walked home, only to hear these 4 men walking behind her, talking about this Matilda being heavy. She thought Matilda was a woman who was murdered and these 4 men were killers. So Yeonhee ran, but then she slipped on a banana peel and in the commotion, she accidentally threw her pads into the air and to the 4 men. The men returned the pads to her and in her embarrassment, Yeonhee ran back home. At home, we are clued in a bit more on Yeonhee as a character. She's 23 years old and she's never had a boyfriend. In fact, whenever she's with boys that she likes, she always freezes and she cannot speak in front of them and she blushes incredibly red. Blushing red is her main thing in the series. It's the thing that she's known for. It says there, "My face is so red, it's gonna explode." Then we meet Yeonhee's family. Her mother is a real estate agent who really wants her daughter to do her fair share of work to make up for still living in her house. Yeonhee's brother Kwangsu is a bit in his own world, but he has an interest in martial arts and coffee, and this will be important later. Yeonhee is informed by her brother and mother that people are moving next door, a bunch of good-looking guys. Even though Yeonhee is a little bit like, good-looking guys, she still feels that it's a bit wrong that her mother would rent out Chan's grandfather's house. Who's Chan? Stay tuned. I mean, it's sort of obvious who Chan is, to be honest. Yeonhee's mom puts Yeonhee in charge of handing the keys over to the guys when they come over. Yeonhee was initially excited because, good-looking guys. But she was disappointed to find out that the guys who picked up the keys were mundane, regular people. She's convinced that her mother just has no taste. So Yeonhee went to relax and watch EXO's other line show. Well, she complained to Kwangsu about how the guys who moved in were ugly. While they were having a discussion, Kwangsu glanced outside the window and noticed that the guys who moved in actually kind of looked like EXO. And confused, he gaslit himself into thinking that EXO is ugly. Yeonhee's mom then tells Yeonhee to get off her ass and work, and to deliver some rice cakes while they're warm to their new neighbors. Yeonhee didn't want to, but her mother threatened to rent out her room, so Yeonhee begrudgingly went to the next door house. She entered the house and put down the rice cakes, but then she decided to also sample some of the merchandise. She ate 1, then 2, then more, and then she started having this baby choke, not like a full-on choke, but a little bit like, something stuck in your throat. So she went to get some water from the fridge, and she was busted by EXO. In shock, she spit takes on Chanyeol as Sehun, and then what's the order? As Sehun, Do, and Baekhyun watches in amusement and horror. Yeonhee returned home and of course she was embarrassed, but instead of atoning for what she did, she decided to choose war and she and her friend decided to spy on EXO because they were huge fans of EXO. They used binoculars to spy into EXO's house. EXO noticed the spies and decided to play a prank on them, so Sehun and Baekhyun pretended to make out. After that whole shenanigans, we learned a bit more about why EXO moved into this house. EXO had been incredibly successful, and after wrapping up a concert, Chanyeol accidentally ran over this lucky charm that his grandfather gave him when he was young. And running over not with a car, by the way, it's like he just ran over the charm using the wheels on those wheelie chairs. And literally not a second after the charm broke, someone came up to Chanyeol and was like, "Chanyeol, your grandpa died." I shouldn't be laughing, but it was the way that the news was delivered immediately after the charm broke that got me. Anyway, let's put up grandpa here. Since then, EXO has been experiencing a lot of misfortunes, and the breaking point was when Chanyeol and Suho were practicing, and Chanyeol knocked over a water bottle, and the water bottle rolled across the dance floor, and Suho slipped on it and fell and injured himself. This is the expression that Suho made. This injury ruined the tour, so it had to be postponed as Suho recovered in the hospital, while other EXO members scattered to the wind to do promotion in China or visit their family or just do their own solo work. However, Chanyeol was convinced that because the lucky charm broke, he was the cause of this string of bad luck. And not to mention, he felt guilty for injuring Suho as well. He truly felt powerless without this lucky charm. So the reason he and the other 3 EXO members moved into the house next to Yeonhee's is because Chanyeol's grandfather used to live there. And Chanyeol remembered that his grandfather mentioned that there were 2 lucky charms. Chanyeol was determined to find this second lucky charm to restore his luck. Boy, you are 23. Anyway, Yeonhee's mother told Yeonhee that she needs to work as a maid for EXO Next Door, much to Yeonhee's horror. But Yeonhee didn't have a job, so she accepted and started cleaning. She's mediocre at her job, but she was very invasive. Like, she licked EXO's mug, like she picked it up and she was like, oh, this is EXO's mug. Weird behavior. And then she took pictures of their personal belongings. She grabbed the hat that they wore and she wore it and then took pictures of herself. It was very unprofessional overall. Her mother also told her that she cannot enter this one particular room. However, Yeonhee recalled Matilda and she wanted to make sure that EXO Next Door were not murderers, so she entered the room. And the room was actually Chanyeol's room and Matilda was a guitar. But Yeonhee saw a CGI cockroach and she went on a mission to catch it, creating a mess in the room in the midst of all of this. And Chanyeol caught her and thought she was invading his privacy and he yelled at her to leave. Yeonhee cried because obviously it was really stressful, but then Dio came up to her and comforted her, and he cemented himself as the second male lead, and we know what that means. He's not going to win the girl. During the commotion and Chanyeol's yelling, Yeonhee left her phone next door and she spent the rest of the night trying to look for it. When she realized she must have left it at Chanyeol's room, she went back to the house to retrieve it, and at the same time, Chanyeol emerged from the bathroom like those tropes and stuff. Yeonhee was scared about being busted, but Chanyeol was more like, you really don't remember me, do you? As you will come to find out, Yeonhee is very dense, so she was very confused by the question. Yeonhee returned home, opened the window because she was blushing so much to the point she felt hot, and she fell ill because she went to sleep with the windows opened. Meanwhile, in the background, Sehun became friends with Kwangsu because Kwangsu makes really good coffee, and Sehun just really wants good coffee. Very Melburnian of him. That's basically Sehun's subplot, but dare I say, the better plot. The next day, Yeonhee didn't come to work and everyone was concerned. So Sehun went to Kwangsu and asked what's happening, and Kwangsu informed Sehun that Yeonhee was sick with a cold. Chanyeol and Dio attempted to cheer up Yeonhee with some tea, but Chanyeol burned his hand pouring hot water, so Dio succeeded because he just bought the tea and had it delivered to Yeonhee. Work smarter, guys, not harder. Yeonhee finally felt better and she returned back to work, but Chanyeol remained rude to her. Yeonhee nonetheless apologized for her conduct last time, and in a moment of vulnerability, she was like, I have a name, right? And Chanyeol was like, yes, I do know your name. It's Yeonhee. Yeonhee was shocked, of course. She was like, oh my god, he knows my name. And Chanyeol was like, no, of course I know my employees' names. However, this whole thing brought the two slightly closer together, and Chanyeol demanded a formal induction for Yeonhee as the EXO Next Door's maid. During this induction, Chanyeol insisted on calling Yeonhee in Cheongyal, and everyone just hopped onto the bandwagon. Yeonhee continued working as the EXO Next Door's maid, and while they worked her to the bone, she's actually enjoying herself because, she's a maid to EXO Next Door. One day, as Yeonhee was busy buying groceries for her mother, she came across her first love. This guy. This first love haunted Yeonhee because she wanted to confess with him once upon a time, but she got so shy and she couldn't say the words, and he was being condescending to her the same way that he was being condescending in present time as well, leading to her being on the verge of tears. Thankfully, EXO Next Door came to her rescue by telling the first love to bugger off. At home, the men started speculating about why Yeonhee was on the verge of tears. Like, what was their relationship? Maybe a first love? This led to Chanyeol being incredibly jealous and Do being somewhat jealous. Back in Yeonhee's house, Yeonhee and her friend was talking about first love, and Kwang-soo overheard and misinformed Sehun that Yeonhee might like someone from EXO, and that person is Kai. I really like Sehun and Baekhyun in this show because they're just so nosy and cheeky. So what they did was they invited Kai to make Chanyeol jealous, only to realize that Do was also jealous. Kai, being the master of Riz, or as Sehun would say, a very masculine man, enjoyed making Chanyeol and Do jealous. I also really like Kai in this show. Sadly, he didn't last that long in the show. However, during his time in the show, Kai clocked that Yeonhee was so dense that she didn't realize that two K-pop stars were interested in her, and he confronted her, alluding to the love triangle, but she remained clueless. So he was like, okay, you know what, like, good luck, and then he left. Kai waited for the van with Baekhyun. He looked wistfully into the distance and he was like, I'm curious about what happens next. Baekhyun Hyung, please tell me what happens next. And then Kai got into the fan and he went bye-bye. In the background, Chanyeol's search for the lucky charm ramped up and he went out in the middle of the night digging in front of the house. But the whole labor was too much for him. He collapsed and fell ill. Relatable. In his fever dream, Chanyeol was visited by his grandpa, the same way that Moses was visited by God. And his grandfather was like, here's a hint to where the lucky charm is. Red, red. Back in real life, realizing that Chanyeol was sick, Yeonhee took it upon herself to take care of Chanyeol. Do during all of this had the epiphany that he's not close to Yeonhee and it's making him feel emo and FOMO. But Yeonhee still had work to do, so she continued doing the house chores and she accidentally dropped a plate and hurt herself. Do helped her clean up the mess and also gave her a band-aid. And then he started talking to her and he was somewhat trying to confess, but then he chickened out when he saw Chanyeol from the corner of his eye. Chanyeol was feeling better already. About halfway through the series, we start learning about the backstory between Chanyeol and Yeonhee. As it turned out, Chanyeol is Chan. Wow, what a plot twist! And Chan is Yeonhee's childhood best friend. They were very close back then until Chanyeol had to move away, maybe to be a K-pop star, perhaps. We get the flashback to their first interaction where Chanyeol helped Yeonhee get back her teddy bear that was stolen by a bully. In the flashback as well, the kids were wearing like Line products, which is strange. Let's do some maths, right? Line was not established until 2011. The series was released around 2015, so we can assume that the series maybe takes place around like 2014. Yeonhee and Chanyeol are about 23 in Korean years, which means in international years they're about 22. For those who don't know, look it up. In South Korea, you are 1 year older than your actual age. So 2014 minus 22 equals 1992, and that's when the characters were born, and that's also Chanyeol's actual birth year. If Chanyeol first met when they were 6, and that's when Chanyeol helped her get the teddy bear back, and this was confirmed by text, okay, I'm not assuming things. So that means they first met in 1998. So that means Line wouldn't have existed back then. What's going on here? What is this universe? A universe perhaps where Line has existed way before the Stone Age. Anyway, remember that Yeonhee is very dense, so she doesn't remember that Chanyeol is actually Chan, her childhood best friend. But Chanyeol remembered, and you know what? This guy makes me really frustrated in this show because, like, what do you mean you remembered and you didn't tell her? You keep bullying her instead of like just telling her that you are Chanyeol, you know, your childhood best friend, and he keeps like being annoying and passive aggressive and just rude to her. Like, come on, don't you like her? Like I thought he likes her. Why does he keep bullying her? Why doesn't he just say that, you know, they're like what's going on? Like, why isn't he just honest? Like, why are we doing this? Like the series would have been shorter if he just told her who he is. Anyway, But then again, we wouldn't have plot, so I guess we have to like, just go along with the ride. I don't know. Anyway, Chanyeol eventually gets really frustrated because of the situation that he got himself into, and he keeps attempting to jog Yeonhee's memory, but she remains dense. Here's where Sehun and Kwangsu came in again. Always rescuing these people, I swear. Sehun was hanging out with Kwangsu when Sehun flipped through one of Kwangsu's martial arts books, and a photo fell out. And Sehun was like, so this photo is of you, Kwangsu, when you were a kid. So this girl must be in Chanyeol. And this other kid, like, he seems so familiar. And he was like, can I borrow this photo for a second? And Sehun brought the photo to the other EXO next door, and he was asking around like, hey, this kid seemed familiar, right? Anyway, Yeonhee was visited by grandfather in her dreams, the same way that Abraham got a vision from God, and grandfather was trying to remind Yeonhee of her friendship with Chanyeol, and he got frustrated over how dense she was, and then Yeonhee woke up. Chanyeol's search for the lucky charm continued, and he found a secret room. The secret room is this room that he and grandfather used to hang out with very often in. As Chanyeol ransacked the secret room, Yeonhee also entered the room and got themselves locked in there. Ooh, forced proximity trope. In that room, there were a lot of items from their past which jogged up a lot of memory, and finally, Yeonhee remembered that Chanyeol is Chan, and Chanyeol finally figured out the hint from grandfather, the red hint, and that red means Yeonhee's red cheeks. Chanyeol finally finds the second lucky charm because Yeonhee had been wearing the second wearing the second lucky charm. Yeonhee was given the second lucky charm by grandpa because when Chanyeol moved away when they were kids, she cried so much. So this was an attempt from grandpa to cheer her up. Anyway, after Kwangsu accidentally triggered the mechanism to open the secret room because he was practicing martial arts, Chanyeol and Yeonhee emerged closer than before, and people took notice. Dio especially. Dio was like, you guys are so close now. And he's so close to confessing again, but then he chickened out again and he self-sabotaged by saying that because he's friends with Chanyeol and Yeonhee is friends with Chanyeol, that means they should be friends. Oh my god, way to sabotage yourself, bruh. Anyway, Chanyeol was like, you know what, Yeonhee, let's go on a date. And she's like, yeah, of course, love that for us. But the happiness couldn't last because suddenly the EXO next door received news that Suho went missing. He ran away from the hospital because he felt like a burden to the whole of EXO. Cue the search party for Suho. We're on the final stretch, guys. Meanwhile, Yeonhee ranted to her friend and she was like, you know what, I'm not receiving any information about this date. And her friend was like, nah, I think that just means you should be more proactive. So Yeonhee planned the date and set the deets to Chanyeol, how she wanted to meet at the playground that they used to play at, but Chanyeol didn't see the message because he left his phone and everyone was busy looking for Suho. Chanyeol attempted one last Hail Mary and went to the dance studio where Suho's accident happened, and Suho was there. Suho confided in Chanyeol about his shame for bringing down the group and for letting the fans down because his injury kept postponing the schedule. Suho was sick of this and he was like, you know what, just perform without me. And Chanyeol was like, no, because loyalty. The rest of the EXO next door went to the dance studio and they reconciled and cheered up Suho. As EXO next door returned back to their house, everyone was asleep in the car except for Dio when he saw Yeonhee alone at the park for the date. He confronted her and she was like, yeah, I have been waiting for Chanyeol for 4 hours, and if it were up to me, after 4 hours, I would go home. But then again, I don't know how I would act in front of a world star who so happened to be my childhood friend. I cannot relate, sadly. Dio was conflicted about whether or not he should tell Chanyeol about Yeonhee, because if Chanyeol didn't go to Yeonhee, Yeonhee would hate him and Dio can swoop in. But Dio chose to be a good guy and he told Chanyeol. Chanyeol rushed to the playground and Dio lamented, if only he had been braver, if only he had been more selfish, if only he had stopped being the good guy. Never again. If he likes a girl, he won't be cowardly and he would just tell her he he doesn't want to be friends. Okay, King? Okay, whatever you say. Anyway, Chanyeol and Yeonhee finally met and they had their date. After the date, it turned out that EXO could return to their schedule. Unfortunately, it was earlier than anticipated. That means that Chanyeol couldn't see Yeonhee as often because of how busy he could get. In their last moments together, Chanyeol apologized to Yeonhee for being rude before he rudely fired her. Because for some reason, the only way that he thought he wouldn't hurt anyone is to break things off. Boy, you are 23! But don't worry, he gave her one last mission. He sent her out to buy some soup from a 63-year-old restaurant so they wouldn't have to say goodbye face to face. As EXO Next Door were about to leave, Sehun was worried. Kwangsu was not answering his phone and Sehun was hoping to say goodbye. But they were going to be late, so they made Sehun get into the van. But then Kwangsu ran after the van with a bag of ground coffee and a thermos of hot coffee for Sehun's trip. How sweet. The sad thing is, right, Sehun and Kwangsu had a tearful farewell, while an oblivious Yeonhee returned to an empty house. Like, that's so mean. Why would you do that to her? Chanyeol left Yeonhee with one last message that says he will be back. And here's a song for you, sung by Baekhyun. And then Chanyeol also told her to take care of the lucky charm. As Baekhyun serenaded us to the finishing line, Yeonhee reminisced all the moments that Chanyeol was rude to her and only nice to her on their final days together. 6 months later, Chanyeol did not contact Yeonhee at all during that period. Suddenly, Yeonhee's mom was like, someone is moving next door. Clean up the place. Yeonhee went to the house and found rice cakes on the table, and then she saw exo-k, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, moving in. EXO Next Door will return in Secret Wars. My feelings about this web series can be best described by Taylor Jenkins Reid's review of The Idea of You. This laid me incredible. This web series is not good. Then again, this series never pretended to be any highbrow art. It leans heavily to the comedy and it's obviously more interested in promoting Line as a product and to being fan serviced for EXO fans. The performances are equivalent to a school spring production in that, like, it's fine for the format and everyone's collective performances made up for an okay experience, but something like this would not gel if it were to be put on like a professional stage, like on TV or film. The only performances that I think could be considered good-ish is Moon Gayoung's as Yeonhee. Her character is annoying to me, but she has enough charm to make her watchable, at least. And I do think that D.O. did a pretty great job with what he was given. Like, you could see that he was trying to take this opportunity seriously to hone his craft as an actor. If Charles Melton said that Riverdale was his Juilliard, then EXO Next Door was D.O.'s summer theater camp. And D.O.'s effort here was admirable, and it reflects on how he's become a good actor overall. Not just in terms of technical skills, but also in his love and respect for the craft. If people are curious about D.O.'s overall acting career, I would recommend watching Along with the Gods or 100 Days, My Prince, which are much better than the show. However, what's more interesting to me about this web series is the story and the way it functions as fan service. When I was talking about EXO Next Door to my friend, shout out to Jess, I talked about the plot and Jess immediately said, the plot feels so much like fan fiction, and I couldn't help but agree. The tropes present in the series are quite commonplace for fan fiction, especially reader insert fanfictions or fanfictions with OCs that are obviously meant to be the author's avatar. I think it's fine to read and write these types of fanfiction as long as it's about the characters who are fictional and not real people. But just think about it. Yeonhee's mom forced Yeonhee to become EXO's housemaid, and that's like one step removed from being sold to One Direction. Anyway, that's not to say that Yeonhee herself is outright a reader insert character. I don't think the writers are even aware of reader insert fanfictions, but she is definitely an audience stand-in that accidentally exhibits a lot of traits present in these reader insert characters. She used to be childhood friends with one of the EXO members. She's in a love triangle with another EXO Next Door who only realized the depths of his capability to love because he met her. Meanwhile, the other EXO Next Door like Sehun and Baekhyun, they take immediate liking to her as well. Yeonhee is also also a quiet blank character. She doesn't have as much history and personality apart from being super shy in front of men she likes and turning super red because of it. So because of that, people can easily imagine themselves in her shoes. Being able to put yourself in that position is something that is very important when it comes to promoting boy groups or girl groups. Parasocial relationship is arguably one of the biggest foundations of fandoms for these people. It's not exclusive to K-pop groups, of course, but in K-pop, this is more prevalent than usual. It extends from something innocuous like asking the members their ideal types, and hopefully the viewers can fit into one of these members' ideal types, all the way to the contracts that these groups have. In the past, even more so, members of K-pop groups are not allowed to date until a few years after their debut. Some people would argue it is to make sure that these people can focus on the group, but I would argue it's also to mitigate any risk of bursting the fans' bubbles that some of these members are not romantically available. Being able to view these people as romantic interests is the biggest marketing tool for these companies. And this is especially a thing in South Korea, where it is common that, you know, when idols are outed for dating someone, these idols have to go and apologize for dating and being distracted, which is insane because they're just being human and seeking companionship. Even if I feel like things have changed and companies have started protecting their artists a bit more, parasocial relationship continues to be fostered, and the internet makes that even more possible, from things like social media all the way to platforms like the aforementioned VLive and most recently Weverse, where the artist can directly chat their fan club with an interface that looks like a chat interface. I don't know about you, but you know, instead of having to scroll through social media, being able to chat, like just the interface itself, like it oddly feels intimate for some reason, because it's like you're chatting, like the idea that you're chatting directly, even if you're not chatting directly and you're in like a group chat, it's still like there's something, you know, like it's a close proximity, like it feels closer than just scrolling through their Instagram feeds. But back to EXO Next Door, I can imagine television networks, local or cable, would be like, yeah, you know what, let's make EXO Next Door, and it's going to air weekly after Crash Landing on You. It just seems very unlikely, but something like this could easily exist on like YouTube or something. And this was something that the industry recognized around 2010s, where web series have become more prevalent. EXO Next Door, despite its quality, is very popular, garnering about 50 million views, which is pretty good, I would say. An article in Korea Times talked about how these types of web series have an appeal, especially in capturing young people who don't like watching TV and prefer being on the internet consuming short-form content. And I would say that these people are streets ahead from Hollywood. However, the downfall of these web series is ultimately the fact that back then, it had no profit model. Ironically, EXO Next Door was reproduced and recut into a film and brought to the 68 Cannes film market. It went to Cannes, guys. It went to Cannes. Apparently, there were a lot of offers from overseas buyer, but I'm not seeing EXO Next Door in the A24 slate. What's happening with that? Release the movie A24. Anyway, I don't know how to end this apart from what an interesting way to promote your boy groups. But what do you guys think? Are you a fan of EXO? And have you watched EXO Next Door? Will you watch it? Have I convinced you to watch it? I feel like my recap was pretty thorough, to be honest. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and share it. Like, I worked so hard on this. I'll probably do something lighter next week because this video had like a 26-page script. It was so long. So yeah, like it would be great if people were to, you know, like and watch the video, because like, you know, I don't want to be hoity-toity, but I did work so hard on this video. Yeah, I rewatched the show. The show is like 3 hours long. That's the length of Avengers Endgame. I could have been watching Endgame instead of this show. But I don't know, maybe I'll do a bit more K-pop videos or more EXO videos. It's up to the exoplanet gods, I guess. But with that said, why not subscribe to the channel to get notified if I do end up doing those videos, you know? Just saying. Apart from that, have a good night, day, dawn, dusk, And I hope to see you guys next week. Bye. Bye. Say goodbye. Say goodbye to this before I take it out.